This is deep. We're going deep, huh? Excites me about surfing? Gosh, dude, it's tails versus rounder nose versus like rockers, and got samples being built right now. It's a board called, people are like, wow, you went to all these cool places, and I'm like, I don't even remember being here. There's so much inspiration. Like, you go to the beach every day, you walk into this shop, you know, every board I take off the rack, I'm like, oh, yeah, look at this. You know, I mean, it's endless, and it's way too fun for me to build my own surfboards and ride them and test them, because it's just like this never-ending cycle of riding and testing and changing and riding and testing and evolving into the next thing. So it's really hard to stop. Like, it's like somebody needs to come in and go, okay, you're done. We're taking this one away. Let's go. You know? So it's fun, man. It's just a lot of fun. I'll tell you that.
So playing around, figuring out what style you like at the time, and just trying new feelings and things like that, rather than... Yeah,
and like, it's crazy. Like, I have this garage full of all my favorite boards from the last 20 plus years. I mean, I have boards everywhere, but I keep this, there's like all these inspirational boards in there, and it's like, I could walk in there one day and just pull a board out and go like, oh, forgot about this one. Like, I like that tail, you know, and like, what if I took that and put it on this nose, and okay. And like, just start kind of mixing and matching things and exploring, stretching things out and shrinking them down, and that just becomes fun to see how things come out and what comes of them. Excites me about surfing? Gosh, dude, I was hanging out with Rasta last night, and it's just like pulling out, he's doing that electric acid surfboard test, right?
Yeah.
And it was just cool, like looking at the boards that he's riding and like trying to guess who's made them, and just geeking out on construction and flex, and you know, like all the different outlines, and even like how a color can really mess with the outline, or the way the color's put on, if it's horizontal versus vertical, and like how it can change your perception of it. And then once you change your perception of it, like from the get-go, anyway, we were going down so many rabbit holes, but like...
So like, do you kind of envision yourself surfing a board before you get in the water and go, these are the kind of lines I want to draw with this board, this is how I want to surf it, I want to, you know, this has this kind of personality, and then you get in the water and suddenly you're like, oh, maybe I was wrong, maybe this is a whole different beast.
Well, I think I come from the school of thought where there isn't such thing as a bad surfboard, right? It's really just the person needs to learn how to ride it. And that there might be a few bad surfboards out there, but there's always something good in everything, is my perspective. And so I love the idea of like getting on a surfboard and exploring what it has to offer, right? Like when we shot Sprout, like when I got on a skip, like I was, at that time, 2003, 2004-ish, I was like right off of tour, like riding high performance thrusters, and you put me on a skip fry with, you know, Geppy flat back, like, you know, that thing went so fast, it was like a missile, but like to turn it was like a whole different deal. And to like understand, like, where do I need to be, and how, like, what's my weighting, and there was a trial and error and a learning process. And like, I think that's just something that's so cool about surfing, is like, you can't ride every board the same. They all react differently, and that's what makes it so fun. You look at every board in that room out there, and you just are like, like, you think you know what it's gonna do, but until you ride it, like, it's all just information that's been passed down, right? Of like, yeah, that board, you know, swallowtails do this, and pintails do this, and it's just all, like, it's all feelings. Like, the guy's just, right? And it's like, until you ride it and have that feeling, then you can confirm it. But there's no science that's backing all this stuff up that's saying, yep, this does this because of that. It's just like, go out and ride it. Like, and test, push the envelope, like challenge everything that's been done and take a little bit of the old and the new and mash, you know.
So you have to ride one of your boards for the rest of your life. Which one are you taking that quiver and being like, that's my forever board?
Wow, that's the worst question you could ever ask. That's terrible. That's mean.
What's your baby?
We were just talking about the Seaside and beyond. Well, you got to factor in age, right? As you get older, like, okay, like what's going to be fun when you can't ride a fish? You know, like I'd like to say I'd ride this thing, but you know, at some point you're not going to be able to ride this thing anymore. And so,
okay, you're trapped in time.
Trapped in time.
Rob now has to pick his favorite board, and he stays the same and rides the same waves, but can only have the one board.
Yeah, interesting. That's a really good question, man. Yeah, I started scanning through the quiver, you know, like the Seaside and beyond seems like a really good, or I mean not Seaside and beyond, just the Seaside in general. And so, like, I don't know what size though, that's the problem. You know, like I just made myself like a little bit bigger of a one, like, but with the same width and thickness. So I stretched it a tiny bit. So I'm riding like a 5'4".
Seaside and beyond mini.
It's a, yeah. So that's where my head goes, because that's like the freshest thing in my catalog, right? That I've been working on.
Let's come back to that one. Have a think.
Yeah, that's where, I mean, that's it. That's my answer. Final answer.
The board that no one can buy.
The Seaside. Yeah, it's coming out. It's gonna come out sometime. Yeah, the mashup was fun, you know, like, I think I threw it out to Dan, and it was a really fun collaboration. He was doing most of the shaping. That was during COVID, and like he made me one, and like the nose was too narrow, and like, you know, and then he sent me a file, and I made the nose wider, and then it was too wide, and then it was just like this back and forth. We went through like 4 or 5 different boards before we finally got to a place of like, okay. And the funny thing about the mashup, I only tested it as a quad, because it was like, in my head, it was like coming from like the Seaside DNA. So I was like, I'm just gonna ride it as a quad. I didn't even put a back fin box in it. I was like, nah. And then it wasn't until after the fact that I even tried it as a thruster, or now I ride it with a 2+1, and that's kind of like my favorite. So, but yeah, it's just, there's just never ending kind of inspiration and exploration, and like I said,
fruit in your fruit bowl giving you inspiration and things.
It's everywhere, man. Like you just, like you said, an avocado inspires me. That sounds weird, but it does.
Creating boards from them. Do you have any pressure from them to shape a certain style of board, or create a certain kind of something that would fit into their like quiver line, or do you still have like that creative freedom?
Yeah. It's really collaborative, you know, because we have,
bit of give and take.
It's a bit of give and take. I obviously am always working on new things, and just kind of, and that I have the freedom to do whatever I want. But at the same time, you have Dan Mann working on stuff, you have Tomo working on stuff, and you don't want to all show up with the same stuff, right? So they kind of point us in general directions, and they, you know, it's like if we all showed up with a fish, they're going to be like, oh shit, you know, like we can't put out 3 fishes. So it's cool. Like they definitely kind of see what I'm doing and go like, all right, yeah, we like going that direction, and you know, and they're probably saying the same thing to Dan and to you know, Tomo, and it's kind of, you just run with it. You just keep evolving and building new stuff and trying new stuff, and it's fun. We have these like they're called like our adoption meetings, where you show up with, you know, I always show up with like 5 or 6 different things that that's kind of been tinkering with, and it's like, well, what about this, and what about that, what about this, and you get everyone there. It's like guys from sales and guys from this marketing and everything, and they all just kind of geek out on all the boards, and like, which one should we pick, you know, like, so it's cool. It's fun to just watch them kind of gravitate towards something, and, you know, like pick a board and then get behind it, and then go from there.
Do you find they come back to you like down the line and they're suddenly like, hey, what about that board model you showed us like 3 years ago? We kind of feel like there's a gap there for it now, like.
Totally. Yeah. There's always, you know, even like the evolution of the Go Fish to the Two Fish. Like the Go Fish ran its course and they took it out of the line and it kind of disappeared. But then there was like a demand there's people going, hey, like, and I was always an advocate, like, you should always just have a fish in your line. Like, that should just,
good versatile board.
It's a stock standard board that just needs to be there no matter what. It's like, you have a fish. It's like having a longboard, you know. It's like, you have a fish, you have a high performance thruster, you have, you know, mid length, and it's kind of, you got to check all these boxes and all these zones. So I was like, we got to bring it back. So it was like, okay, let's do the Two Fish and like evolve it. So.
Best piece of life advice you've ever received?
Oh, wow. Best.
Since you're quite a philosophical dude.
This is deep. We're going deep, huh? If you're not having fun, you shouldn't be doing it. That kind of sums it up, you know?
Short, sweet.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's kind of like, you know, when you talk to your elders, that's always like the question. They'll ask you like, oh, what are you doing? And whatever it is, like, where are you working and what's going on? And whatever you answer, they always follow it up with like, are you happy? Are you having fun? And that, like, to me is like, oh, yeah, duh. Like, because they're at a point in their life where they look back and go like, well, only do shit that like makes you happy. Like, it's pretty simple. Like, of course that can't happen all the time, but like, if you can accomplish that for most of your life, then I think you're doing pretty good.
Do you feel like you've done that with yours?
Yeah, you know, that's been my goal. I'm blessed to have surfing in my life, and that makes me very fulfilled and happy, and, you know, and that's just like led into, it kind of bleeds into the rest of your life, right? When you have that kind of fulfillment in yourself, and then you can just spread it around to the people around you. So.
Did you find that challenge moving from competitive surfing into being like, what's going to make me happy now?
Well, you realize real quick when you stop competing, you're like, wow, that wasn't that fun. Like, so much stress and like pressure, and you're not even paying attention to like where you are, and people are like, wow, you went to all these cool places, and I'm like, I don't even remember being here. Like, people come up to me and go, yeah, you remember I surfed with you, you were here for this contest, and I'm like, I have zero recollection of ever being here. And that's messed up. Like, that's really messed up. Like, you're that hyper focused on one thing that you don't even pay attention to what is going on. Like, like the restaurant on the beach, like, you're just nothing. That's it. So when you step away from that and now you go places and you're like, this place is cool. Wow. And you like actually acknowledge what people are doing and how they're living, and the culture and everything else. Like, it just changes everything. So, yeah. Foam is your friend. Like, no doubt about it. So then it became this world of like, you had the biscuit, I had the biscuit, and then I had like this high performance shortboard, and I was like, wow, there's so many possibilities in between here, you know? And then you sprinkle in a skip fry fish and you're like, whoa, that's even more extreme than a biscuit. So now the whole thing opened up even more, right? I'm like, okay, the biscuit sits in here somewhere. It's kind of down on that end near the fish. And then you've got high performance, you know, and then you just start exploring through these worlds of like swallowtails versus rounder nose versus like rockers, and, you know, like question everything. And that's where boards like Midases are born and Seasides are born. It's just from all those things, all those moments of just exploration in that world. And that's like, I don't know, I just fell in love with that whole world of like, if I ever want to go back and ride a super high performance board, it's there. Like, and those are like as refined as they'll ever be. And like, if, you know, go get a Channel Islands or a Mayhem or whatever it is. Like, I don't really make those boards. They seem scary to me. They're like F1 race cars. Like, they're so refined. And whereas I like to, not that where I shape isn't, but I just feel like there's just more volume and more playfulness and float and glide, and you're not trying to win a world title or do anything near that. You know?
That's kind of the natural evolution of how you went from being like comp surfer to shaping, being like, well, I can fill these gaps myself and I want to explore it and not rely on anyone else to a degree.
Yeah.
Like, I've got the knowledge now.
Yeah.
Give me some foam.
Give me some foam and let's make it fun. Like, surfing needs to be fun all the time. And there's a surfboard for every day. Like, it's so cliche, but like today I paddled out, it was maybe knee high, and if I wasn't on anything but an 11-foot glider, like, I wouldn't have had that much fun. And instead, like, I got one wave that I was like flying down the line, going as fast as I could go on a shortboard probably. Like, I got this little bubble and it just shot me through, and I came out the other side just woo, you know, like, how did that happen on the worst day of the year? Like,
I didn't even paddle out today.
See what I mean?
You don't know until you go.
You never know.
Did the success of the Seaside catch you off guard? In terms of like, you talked about how like the Midas was your baby that you thought was going to go big,
Yeah.
and then suddenly out of nowhere the Seaside was like one of the best selling boards ever to be released if you look at all the stats and things. How did that change things for you?
Yeah, it did catch me off guard, you know, because I had made the Go Fish, and I remember taking a Go Fish and just putting a quad setup on it. And I was like, oh, let's see how that goes. And it was just weird. It was okay, but it wasn't anything different, like too different. It just felt like a fish that was a little bit stiffer, and I was like, huh. And then it was like, what if we, you know, then my brain just, if I narrow up the tips and like give it a little more curve and, you know, like just give it a little narrower, and just started playing around with different things. And the first time I rode it, like I made the first one and rode it, and I was like, wow, like this board feels amazing. Like, it was just like a really good combination of like the Go Fish, like morphed into taking out like the really fishiness about it. You know, like fishes have these qualities about them that like really fast down the line, you know, definitely have to take different lines. You can't like crank and go straight up. And the Seaside just added this level of stability and I don't know, like a tighter arc that, you know, with the narrower tail that you could really like turn it and put it in better places, but it still had that squirt and that glide, and it was just like, ooh, this is fun. Like, so it was a surprise. I just make boards and I'm like, I'm having fun. I hope somebody else rides this and has fun. Like, that's kind of the coolest thing for me, is that when I actually see people riding my surfboard and like super happy, like, and stoked, then I'm like, wow, that's pretty neat. Like, I made something that person, like, it gave them happiness. Like, that's pretty cool.
Is that kind of why a lot of your boards at the moment are kind of in that kind of more small wave board category, because you've got that user friendliness to it and you can just pass on that stoke really easy? Or is that just because that's just kind of what you're riding at home now and that's kind of the vibes you're going for and the boards you want to have under your feet?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surfing big waves. Like the waves I surf at home, you know, it's, yeah, we get a couple swells a year, but I'm not going to Hawaii anymore. And it's like, I want boards that can like skate through flat sections and give me the ability to knife a turn and then get speed and just connect dots, and I want boards that I can ride like when it gets a little bowlier and punchier, and so it's just never ending. Like I keep saying that, right? Like you can just keep tweaking and retuning and doing different things, and it just keeps getting funner and funner. Like I love it.
A simple question. Favorite wave in the world?
Ooh, nothing simple. Come on. Favorite wave in the world. Wow.
Does that come back to the what's your favorite board? Like what board?
Yeah. I mean, I haven't been there in so long, but I always had just the funnest surfs at like Macaroni's. I mean, that was just such a pretty neat time, like to go out there in the late 90s, surfing those waves, like all the just Indonesia in general. Like, let's be real, like it's insane. And I could even say, like, I just love surfing Uluwatu. Like, Uluwatu is amazing, you know? G-Land. Like, there's so many waves. There's so many good waves in Indonesia, so.
Goofy footer's dream.
Yeah.
What's in the pipeline? Can we have a sneaky taste of, you've kind of teased the Seaside and Beyond mini.
The mini Seaside and Beyond, yeah.
Anything else that you're propping about in your quiver that maybe coming our way soon, or?
Yeah, well, I just finished it. I just kind of turned it in, so we got samples being built right now. It's a board called the Groove, and it is probably my most high performance board I've made. It's like a very, I don't know, like a very stock standard squash tail, but I ride mine at like 5'6", so it's pretty long for me, you know. But the nose has a little bit of has some ears on it, and it's got some volume up in the nose, so it's like this very much of a hybrid, and it's a thruster. So when you step back on the tail, like if I just held the tail up and you saw the tail, you'd think like, oh, is that a high performance, you know, any sort of shred model that you could see in any surf shop? But when you look at the nose, it's kind of like you cut it short and rounded it off a little bit, and yeah, that's next. The Groove, coming soon.
Thanks very much for joining us today, Rob. See you next week, guys. Like, comment, subscribe. Yoo!